Welcome in, everybody, to just another edition of Just Another College Football Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tommy Brzee. It is August 22nd, a Friday, and we are one day away from college football being back in our lives. I will give a full breakdown of Week 0. We'll get into all the FBS games. I'll give a little bit of love to the FCS on the backside of this weekend, but didn't necessarily have too much of an insight on those games going in, so we'll cover all the FBS games coming up this weekend. Obviously, Farmageddon will lead us off a little bit more in-depth there. Then we'll get to Dan Mullen returning, Kansas going into a year where they could be the sneaky team in the Big 12, Stanford, a must-win out there in Hawaii, and they are not favored in that game. We'll get into all of that. In the second segment, we'll jump into fall camp intel. A ton of quarterbacks have been named around the country, and a lot of different news has come out around quarterbacks around the country. One battle at Missouri might will extend likely into the season just a little bit. Then we'll get into my favorite bets for the 2025 season. I have 4 win total bets. I have 4 Heisman bets that you might be willing to take a little bit of money on. None of them are my outright pick for the Heisman, but some of them are just very, very good value as I see it going into the season. And then we'll finish it out. We'll do a little bit of a weekend wrap up. A big thing happened in the SEC yesterday. Kind of glad that I had to push this off until Friday. Been a little bit sick this week, but at the end of the day, we are here. We're going to break it all down for you guys, and let's waste no more time. Let's get into the Week 0 preview. There is a really, really good game tomorrow. There's a top 25 matchup between Iowa State and Kansas State over there in Dublin, Ireland. It's going to be incredible. It's going to be so much fun to watch. We're already getting videos of these fans being in the city, enjoying their time, having a Guinness or two that has the Kansas State logo on top. It's been incredible to watch. It's college football being back is what it is, and it's an incredible, incredible thing. But this is going to be an incredible game. It's going to be a game that really does define a lot of what's going on in the Big 12 this upcoming year. I've said it earlier when we were talking about this game. I believe the loser will not be in the Big 12 championship. Obviously, they're not outright eliminated. Obviously, they still have plenty of time to figure out some of that stuff. The reality is this is going to be a huge matchup, and I find it really hard to believe that either of these teams are going to be able to waltz through their schedule without a couple of losses after this game. So if Iowa State falls, I think they're probably not making to the Big 12 championship. The same exact thing with Kansas State. So no one's getting eliminated outright tomorrow. I think someone could be in really, really dire straits in a conference where you're going to need as much goodwill and as much buffer room as you can possibly get. But Kansas State comes in as the favorite to win the conference. Iowa State not far off from the top. About everyone is not far off from the top, frankly. But both return their starting quarterbacks, both return both coordinators, both return their head coaches. It is a very, very stable program against a very stable program. Now, there are a couple of big losses. Obviously, Iowa State losing Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel on the outside. Huge. You don't usually have 2 top 90 picks or top 3-round picks at the wide receiver position at Iowa State. That just doesn't happen very often. It's probably not going to happen this year. Now, you have some really talented guys, and we'll get into them here in a second, but I do think they have enough guys to replace those guys. I also think it might be a tough pull in Week 0, but we'll figure that out as we go on. Obviously, with Kansas State, the story is Avery Johnson. Can he make that leap this upcoming year? Can Dylan Edwards kind of become a little bit more of that down-in, down-out back? Probably going to get a lot of Joe Jackson in this game if I had to imagine at the running back position for Kansas State, but I do think Dylan Edwards will factor in at some point. There are really talented players all over this football field. Obviously, it might not be the outright, Jeremiah Smiths of the world or Ryan Williams or anything crazy, but Jace Brown plays some really good football. I think there's some transfers over there at Iowa State that are going to be really, really good players, and a number of things that you're going to want to watch very, very closely. So you won't know too much about these teams going in. Obviously, people will try to convince you they know everything about how this game is going to go. It's all over the place. Until these guys kick it off, we don't know what these teams are going to be. We don't know how they're going to go about their business. We don't know how big of losses they've had on either side of the ball. We're going to find out in a hurry. I can almost promise you that. I think these two teams are going to be a great matchup for each other, and I think it's going to show us where does everyone stand in the Big 12, at least these two teams. Where do they stand in the hodgepodge that is the Big 12 as of right now? But there's a number of things to watch in this game. Right now, KSU is favored by 3, 2.5, 3.5, somewhere in that realm, depending on where you're looking. Over-under at 49.5. I'd love the under in that one. I'll be totally honest with you. I do not love these teams scoring a ton in their first game, but at the end of the day, I love these quarterbacks, and I think they have a lot of confidence going into this game. As far as I see it, though, I think there's one matchup that everyone's going to want to watch and a couple of players that everyone's going to want to know, and it's the run game for Iowa State against the linebackers, or really the defense for Kansas State, but I'll single in on 2 linebackers here. For Iowa State, Carson Hansen and Abu Sama are elite. It's a great running back duo, about as good as you're going to find on the Kansas State side. Probably a little bit better, frankly, than Dylan Edwards and Joe Jackson, but regardless, a very good duo. And when you come to Iowa State, the first thing you talk about is the loss of Jalen Noel, is the loss of Jaden Higgins, and these guys got to pick up the slack. There's no doubt about it. I think Abu Sama is uniquely talented, very good back. I think Carson Hansen's more your steady hand in that backfield, probably going to be the starter for this team, although I think the split's going to be pretty even, if I had to imagine, between these two players. For Kansas State, Austin Romaine's about as good of a linebacker as you're going to find in the country. Definitely in this conference, him and Jacob Rodriguez really do set the pace for linebackers in this conference. The guy next to him is no slouch. Desmond Purnell is a very good player. Absolutely someone that understands this defense very well and will be sitting in the middle of that defense along with Austin Romaine. It's a duo that is really talented and definitely can be a huge force for Iowa State to deal with in this game. But a couple of things that I'm watching closely. Obviously, the run game for Iowa State is going to be huge, but you got to find the pass catchers. You got to find the guys that are going to make big-time plays for you. Losing Jalen Noel and losing Jaden Higgins is huge. It's massive for this team. I love Chase Sowell. I think bringing him in from Eastern Carolina is a massive deal. I think he's a player that can really develop into a huge player for this team, a 1,000-yard type receiver for this team. Can you do it in game one is the big-time question. Xavier Townsend comes in from UCF, another very talented guy, a little bit longer than Chase Sowell, but still very talented, very rangy, absolutely a guy that can become a big-time player for them. Again, does he have the confidence with Rocco Becht in that first game, or does it take a couple of weeks to get everything under control? That'll be the big-time question they have to find. Big plays through the air in this game, or Kansas State can just sit down with those two big-time linebackers and make life really tough for you inside the box. And then you got Avery Johnson and Dylan Edwards leading the run game for Kansas State. It is a really good run game, and it's one that I think can be really multiple. When you have a guy like Dylan Edwards, you can play around with a lot of different things. You can play around with two running back sets if you really want to, and have Dylan Edwards split out into slot, split out outside, and then play around with him from there. He is a very dynamic player. If you can get this guy's feet under him, get him going downhill, he's really hard to stop. And then Joe Jackson, a very tough player to take down. Iowa State was below 100th in the country when it comes to rush yards allowed per game. I believe they gave up somewhere in the realm of 160 to 180 per game. If Kansas State can get this ball rolling early on in the run game, it's going to be really hard for Iowa State to slow them down. And then finally, does Avery Johnson take the leap? I think everyone knows, at least relatively, what Rocco Becht is going into this year. I think they know he's a very talented quarterback. Maybe doesn't have the unique athletic ability that some other guys in this conference have, but is a very talented kid and absolutely someone that's going to run that offense very efficiently. With Avery Johnson, you have a couple more questions. I think you look at him and you say, very talented kid, can do a lot of really incredible things on the football field. The legs are obviously the kind of thing you write home about. Very talented with his legs extending plays. Does he take the leap that they need him to take in this year? Because they are the favorites to win this conference. They are coming in as the expected favorites. I think he's coming in as the expected, probably best quarterback or one of the best quarterbacks in this conference. He's got to take a leap to do that. He's got to be able to jump over the Sam Levitts and the Josh Hoovers and all of those guys in this conference, the Rocco Bechts in this conference, and this would be the perfect time to do it. And I think they will. I think Kansas State will win this game. I'm going to take them -3. Obviously, would love if it was -2.5. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think both these teams are going to relatively struggle to get everything moving. That being said, I think when you look at the Big 12 right now, these teams might be a little bit further along when it comes to being a quote-unquote finished product in Week 1 because of the comfortability in the offense, because of the quarterbacks coming back, both play callers coming back, the head coach coming back. You're going to know what these teams are, at least in some realm, on Monday. You're going to know exactly how they're going to go about their business. You won't know exactly how high their ceiling is or what they will become, but we'll have a pretty good idea of how these teams are going to at least go about their business the rest of the season. We're going to have a pretty good idea of which is the better team, and we might just have an idea of which team is getting eliminated from the Big 12 championship. As of right now, I'm going to say it's Iowa State, and I think Kansas State puts on a pretty good show in this one. To be totally fair, I think it's going to be a relatively defensive battle, but Avery Johnson makes just enough plays for Kansas State to win this one. Moving forward, we got Idaho State out UNLV. this should be a tune-up game for UNLV. They're going to play both quarterbacks with Alex Orji and Anthony Colandrea. We will see both of them. So we will see kind of what that looks like. Is Anthony Colandrea a little bit more of the passing guy, while Alex Orji runs the ball a little bit more often? Is it just an entire split between what their duties are, both of them passing the same amount, both of them running? It'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out, and it might just be a two quarterback system relatively going forward for UNLV depending on how this game plays out. But they're favored by 24.5 in this game. They should win this game comfortably. There is no reason to believe that UNLV should not be able to run away with this one. Idaho State's not a great FCS team. So at the end of the day, I think UNLV should be a really fun team to watch. A lot of really good former Power 5 talent on that team, Power 4 talent on that team. But at the end of the day, I think UNLV should roll in this one. Would probably take Idaho State plus the points, but at the end of the day, going to just add the Kansas State, Iowa State one to my full pick total for the season. But these are really fun games, and I think UNLV should be really fun to watch, and they should get a comfortable win. Fresno State at Kansas State is a very interesting one. You got Kansas kind of being the team that everyone seems to be forgetting about in the Big 12. Not to say that they're not getting any picks for a conference title, but last year at the end of the season, when we saw Jalen Daniels really put it all together, they took down a number of teams. They took down an Iowa State team that very luckily got their way back into the Big 12 championship. They took down a number of big-time teams towards the end of the season and torpedoed a lot of seasons in the Big 12. If they carry that over, they're going to be a really good football team. And it sounds like Jalen Daniels looks the part throughout the entirety of the offseason. They're favored by 13 in this game. The pass catchers are going to have to make a big-time leap. Emmanuel Henderson's the guy that I'm watching very, very closely. But overall, I think Kansas has got a roll in this game, and I think they will. I think they will win by at least 14 points, and I think Jalen Daniels will show why people probably shouldn't have forgot about him too quickly, and frankly, I might be in that group just a little bit. Sam Houston at Western Kentucky, a really fun game and a really interesting game between the quarterbacks. I think Western Kentucky is favored by 10.5, so there is a little bit of a gap here. But Sam Houston's Hunter Watson is a very, very tough runner. He's a guy that is not going to be denied those extra 3 yards to get a first down. Very, very tough to defend. The fun part about Western Kentucky is they replaced a really talented passer in Caden Veltkamp with maybe a more talented passer, and Maverick McIver. He comes over from Abilene Christian, was a very, very good quarterback for them, and absolutely a guy that can continue to run this WKU offense with a lot of ability. He is going to let it fly. It's going to be a really, really fun, fast-paced offense that he's going to be very comfortable in. I'll take Western Kentucky in this one. I think they can win this one relatively comfortably. I think Hunter Watson makes a couple of plays here and there for the Bearcats, but at the end of the day, I think Maverick McIver puts on a little bit of a show in this one, frankly. And then finally, Stanford goes to Hawaii in the opening week of the season, and they're underdogs. Hawaii is favored by 2.5 in this one. I think they're playing this one on like a high school field as of right now, so that'll be interesting to watch. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of really fun players in this game, mainly on the Hawaii side, weirdly enough. Now, for Stanford, they're starting the Oregon State transfer Ben Goldbranson at quarterback. That'll be an interesting fit. He's absolutely a guy that put together some good football for Oregon State at times last year. Definitely someone that's going to need to take a step up this year. No doubt about that. So we'll see how that unfolds. For Hawaii, Pofele Ashlock is a very good wide receiver, is absolutely someone that is going to make a big-time impact in this game. They have a lot of dudes on the outside, frankly. They have two dudes that are absolutely going to be a nightmare for Stanford to handle. I think Stanford needs this one, but I don't think they'll get it. I think Hawaii is a very, very good football team. I think they're going to be able to do some really fun things on the outside, and I just think Stanford's going to be a little bit of a tough watch this year. Sorry, Cardinal fans, but at the end of the day, I am going to take Hawaii to win this one. I'm going to take Pofele Ashlock to make a number of big-time plays in this game, and for Hawaii to get a big-time win, and Stanford to be probably looking for their first win for quite some time this season. But it's going to be awesome. It's college football. At the end of the day, I could have read any two teams in the entire country. It's college football. So we're going to enjoy it all. Now, we do get a top 25 matchup, so I cannot wait for that one to unfold. Going to be a huge one in the Big 12 when we talk about the CFP down the road. We'll probably go back to that Week 0 game between Iowa State and Kansas State. But we'll take our first break here. When we come back, we got fall camp intel. We got a number of quarterbacks that have been named to their starting job. A little bit late on some of these, so apologies for that. But at the end of the day, we'll jump into all the news right after this, so stick with us.